Welcome to the Change Book Podcast. My name is Rachel Best, and this is our co-host.
I'm Nicole Harvick.
And this is the Change Book series. It is the fastest growing self-empowerment book series on the planet.
This spans over 30 countries, and we now bring them all together in a powerful podcast destined to change people from all corners of the globe.
So go ahead and grab your pen and paper because our guest today is going to share a lot of amazing tips and inspiration that you're definitely going to want to write down.
Good morning, everyone. I am Nicole Harvick, and I am your host for the Change Book Podcast. And this is where we highlight our amazing co-authors. And this guy's one of my favorite. I have talked to him. I have seen pictures he sent me, and he's absolutely amazing. But I want to catch up with him because he's got some really cool things going on. So Chad Gaines, welcome. How are you?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I am doing well.
Yeah, 7 a.m. for you, right?
It is. It is.
Yeah. And I'm so grateful that you got up this early and you're going to tell us about yourself. So let's catch up just with the Change Book real quick. I know you wrote a chapter in that, obviously. What book are you in?
I am in 18. I don't know if you can see this well or not.
Yeah, it looks great. Great picture of you too. And of course, anytime we're on the front cover with Les Brown, that's always a plus, right?
Amazing. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
It is amazing.
Love Les Brown.
Oh, I know. So inspirational. It's just, I'm going to hit Jim Lutz up to see if he'll get us an interview with that guy. So we'll see what happens.
Sure.
So tell us what you wrote about in your chapter in book 18.
I wrote a little bit about my life story, and also the long-term effects of PTSD. I think that's very important that not just because of my story and what I've been through, but for countless other people that suffer from the long-term effects of trauma and PTSD. So that's what my chapter is about.
Okay. And I've been around people that kind of poo-poo PTSD. It's a real thing. It's a real thing. And can you just give us a little more information of what your PTSD was and how you've been dealing with it over the years? I know that's like a long story in itself, right?
I would say PTSD has affected 90% of my life, if not 95% of my life. From the time I was a young boy up until last night. There's no cure for PTSD, never goes away. You have to manage it and have a great support system like I do to just function daily. It's difficult, from the physical pain that you get to nightmares that you get, flashbacks during the days. From the trauma and different things that can trigger you. It's a monster. It really is a monster. And there's a lot of moving parts that go with PTSD. It's not just one thing, it's several different things that are connected.
Wow. And, we've got a lot of new authors since you wrote book 18, because I'm like 19, we've got 20. So we have a lot of new people that are watching this. And that's another reason I want to introduce them to you, because I think you have such an amazing and unique story. Can you just give us a little background? I know it was a lifetime, and it's probably hard to put in a little bottle and tell us about it. But could you give us some of your background of where that PTSD came from?
Sure. In my young life, I was physically abused, emotionally abused, horrific. One of the worst cases in the Indiana, Illinois area at the time in the early 80s, due from my mother. My father left the house when I was about 5 years old. And it just took on a incredible, horrific nightmare scenario, enough where one day it's going to be a movie.
Wow.
So not only did it affect me in my young life, it also carried into my adulthood with other traumas that I faced, a horrific car accident and the murder of my stepfather. Um, and it just really affected me from the time I was probably 6 years old up until I'm 50 years old now, and it affects me every single day. All those things contribute to my decisions with different things, how I cope with different things. Money management is just off the table for me because I can no longer do that. So it's very important with PTSD to have a wonderful support system like I do.
You know, as a 6-year-old, you know, it's horrific for me to know your story because I'm a mother of two, and that's just not the role a mother plays in her children's life.
Right.
So, was there drug addiction that added to, you know, to the trauma? Is that why she treated you like that?
Toward the end of my mother's life, yes. Toward the beginning, when she was younger and I was a young boy, I think, you know, looking back now, obviously it had a lot to do with mental illness.
Hmm.
She had PTSD herself from being abused from my grandmother, her mom, and it just carried on. It just carried on into me. I don't think there is any excuse, and I'm not trying to make any excuses for what she did, but yeah, I would definitely say mental health contributed to it. Toward the end of her life, when she murdered my stepfather, it was definitely opiates, addiction that they both had, and it just carried into. Uh, it took on a world of its own when it came to that, with just doing whatever they could, meaning my stepfather and my mother, to get oxycodone, and the effects of it was just devastating, devastating,
Wow.
and
And
it
it's
ended my
it
father's life.
wow. And
My stepfather.
your stepfather. And at 6 years old, you know, as a little guy, where do you turn? Did you turn to teachers? Did you turn to other family? Because it sounds like it goes back in a line of succession to your grandmother, to your mother, and then, you know, her taking it out on you.
Yes. I think it was more of, it was pretty obvious back then, first, second, third grade. I didn't have to really say anything. The teachers knew, the principal knew. And that's where the investigation took a turn, which I thought was going to be a good thing, but turned out to be a horrific thing.
Mhm.
Um, yes, but it was pretty obvious. It was pretty obvious coming to school in the same clothes for a week at a time, or you know, being really dirty. Obviously, you could see that um, there was no bathing or cleaning or anything like that. Um, Failed, you know, many times, probably 4 times. I think it was 4 times before I got to the fifth grade that I was held back in school because I had missed so many school or so many days due to child abuse and the things that I was going through at home. And it just took on a world of its own where you didn't have to tell anybody. They just knew.
I
But
knew.
back then, they knew it was one of those mentalities. That's not your business. Don't
Oof.
talk about it. Just society in general. That's not your business. That's, you know, whatever goes on in their home is their business. That was the early 80s where I grew up, the mentality that they had of just, you know, we know what's going on, but don't talk about it. It's not like today. You know, you miss three
Gotcha.
days of school now. You know, you're getting a phone call, or the parents are getting a phone call. Uh, uh, Students miss 5 days of school. They're burying the teacher under the school because they're in
Yeah,
so much trouble,
exactly.
you know?
Exactly.
And I had to go back and get my school records for a couple different reasons. Mainly for the research of my book, my own personal book that I wrote, but also with the Change Book series, I had to get some, you know, I had to make it as accurate as the words that I was saying. So I went back and I got my elementary school records, and what I didn't realize that, in the first grade, I missed 43 days of school. And again, everybody knew but wouldn't talk about it. And it just so happened that I had a wonderful teacher who did decide to address the problem, the issue, the child abuse issue, took me to the principal. And I remember that day, the state officers, state police officers came in, took pictures because I had bruises and had some burns on me. And I really thought that was going to be the end of it. I really thought that was going to be my rescue. I remember the day so clearly. And because of the lack of resources and the lack of knowledge that we have today, it wasn't my rescue. It was going right back into the pit of hell with my mother. Back then, if they had a problem, they would call the parents. So they would call the parents in and say, we want to talk to you a little bit about Chad. And the question always came up, what did he do now? Because all the blame was always put on me.
Sure.
He fell, that's why he has these bruises. He was playing with the stove, that's why he got burned. He fell down the stairs, that's why he's got a broken nose at 7 years old. All these things. And they took the pictures, and then they called my mother. My mother came in, and you could just see the evilness in her eyes that morning, that I was in deep trouble. If the cops didn't take me out of here to safety, I was, it was a good chance that I would not make it back to school ever again.
Wow.
And I remember the principal saying, well, you just need to go spend some time with Chad because he's having some trouble here at school. And I felt so betrayed at the time, not understanding what was going on. And, they said, take some time off and go spend it with Chad. And I knew at that minute, I thought I was dead.
Yeah.
There was no chance that I was ever coming back to school to see my friends or see my teachers or any of those things. And I did. I went through it for 3 or 4 days, pretty bad. And, came back to school like it was nothing, just like a normal day. And went on with my young life, and finally made it to 5th grade, where I met another incredible teacher that taught me the game of basketball, that got me out of the house, and really just changed my life.
Oh, and that's what I was going to ask you, that, you come from that family of abuse. So when it gets to you, some people would say, oh, it's just going to carry on. What was that catalyst that you said, I'm done. I'm not going to do this. I want something more for myself.
Well, I think the normal thing is to carry it on with either with your children or just society in general. And I remember being told the statistics of my situation, and I was a pretty young kid. I was probably 23 years old at the time, and I got in trouble with the law, just like statistics would say. Got in trouble with the law, and I remember the probation officer or parole officer telling me, the statistics are that you're never going to make it through this probation and you're going to go back to prison. Wow. Because one of two things, you're either going to find addiction to get addicted to get away from the PTSD and run from it, cover it up, how you're feeling and what you went through, or you're going to end up as a serial killer. 40% of horrific child abuse incidents become serial killers.
I have never
Believe
heard
it or not.
That is crazy.
And I wrote that in another book that I was featured in. with statistics. Those are proven statistics that you're either going to end up one way or the other. You're going to end up in prison, or you're going to end up in as a serial killer. So you don't have much choices. And I think it was just, I knew in my heart that that violence had broke me. And everybody asked, how are you so corny and funny and shy at times with all you've been through and all the stages that you've been on and all the podcasts that you've been on? And I think this is the most important statement, that nobody will ever understand the violence it took in my life to be this gentle.
Wow. That's quite a statement.
And that's what happened to me. And I just said, I watched my cousin go to prison for 50 years, younger than me, still in prison for violence. He grew up in the same area, same household, not same household, but same atmosphere for sure, same family members. And he went through it and just lashed out in violence. And he's in prison for 50 years.
Wow.
And
and that could have been you so easy.
Absolutely, it could have been. And I went to see him one day, and my drive back home, it was just like, wow, how different our lives become with the same atmosphere, with the same abuse. And we just decided to go in our separate paths. And it came down to the most important question that I asked myself, and this is what changed everything. It's about a mindset. And this is what I learned. When they asked my cousin, why did you start drinking? Because he got in trouble with alcohol and ended up stabbing 2 people and ended up in prison. He's doing his 50 years. And it came down to this mindset that I asked on my drive back home, how incredibly odd and significant it was when somebody asked him, they had an interview with my cousin and asked him, why did you start drinking? He said, because my dad did. And then they came to me because I was the cousin that was totally different, living a different life. And they asked me, why did you stop drinking? I said, because my dad did.
Wow. Two different, huge perspectives there.
Huge perspective. And my dad left at 6 years old. And I had always wondered my whole life, like any other child, daughter or son would wonder, what's their dad doing, where he's at now? Did he leave me because he's some, great movie star or whatever the case may be? And I wondered these, and it drove me crazy for nearly my whole life. And I watched my dad come back in my life at 32 years old. And I watched this gentleman transform into what I thought was this monster, because I didn't know as a young boy. And I watched him come back in my life as a broken, elderly man before he passed. And I watched him transfer into this man of God that got to see me speak on stage, that got to share his life with me, how he left, why he came back in my life, what was going on in his life. And, God does wonders when you have an open heart with things and you forgive. Because my dad was out of my life for 32 years and came back into my life for 32 days before he passed away.
Wow.
And I got all the closure I needed. We got to hang out many times. I got to take care of him, and he stayed with me for 3 weeks out of the month he was in my life. I reunited him with his brothers and sisters that didn't know what happened to him. He just disappeared. And they got closure. And he passed at his sister's house, my aunt's house, on their couch in his sleep peacefully.
Wow.
And it was just an incredible ending to what I thought I would never get closure for. And It just healed a great part of my life and allowed me to continue on to write different chapters and books about my life, write my own book, and now they're turning, the book into a movie.
Yeah.
And wow, I just got a great support system with, of course, number one is my wife that's already over here on her computer working and doing her thing. And
Yay. Yeah,
wow,
I see your pictures of your wife and daughter, and I see the smiles on everyone's faces, and you can tell they're genuine. There's nothing forced, there's nothing fake. And you, with what you went through, you could have been in a world of forcing things, but you're so genuine. And I love the name of your book, Who Am I?
yes,
That
there's
just
so many reasons for that.
Oh, I can imagine. So tell us about that, and then tell us about it being made into, I don't know if it a TV movie or big screen movie.
Big screen movie.
Yay. Okay. So tell us
Yeah.
about Who Am I?
Well, for years, I knew obviously I had a story. I was in my 20s, still going through some things, getting in trouble. And that's when I started my path down drinking heavily, using drugs. I went back and forth between cocaine and heroin for 5 or 6 years. Led me to getting in trouble, not because of the drugs, luckily, or I'd probably still be in prison. Got away from that, but I had a lot of anger that I didn't know where it was coming from. Obviously, looking back now, I know where it came from, obviously, from my trauma, but I didn't know at the time. And I would just lash out and get in so much trouble for fighting and stealing from my drug habit. And, violence was everywhere in my young life. I didn't have a brother and sister. I was the only child. And really got the full blunt of
Everything.
full force of everything. So I knew I had a story, and I knew one day that I would write it. I knew that probably by the time I was 10 years old. I didn't know how, I didn't know why, didn't even like books, didn't know how to read because I was held back for so long. I had a first grade education in the 5th grade because I wasn't there. And I just decided to sit down and think, where do I start this thing? Where do I end it? So I had years to think about it. Do I start the end at the beginning at the beginning? How do you do this? How do you write a book? I don't know. Who do you talk to? What's the title going to be? The fancy catch lines and all that. I'm like, I don't know. And then I started listening online, believe it or not, all the people that would talk about my story and what they were saying. I wasn't answering the comments, but I was watching. I was watching online through Instagram and Facebook. And I seen like recovered drug addict and homeless guy, writes book and all these different things. And I thought, wow, over the years, there has been so many labels placed on my life by other people
that don't even know you,
that don't even know me, that have never met me. And I thought, wow, who am I? Who really am I? And I thought, wait a minute, that's the book.
Wow.
The people decide who I am because they already got labels on me anyway. So why not? Who am I? There's so many working parts to me. And the things that I've been through, and obviously it's no secret that my Lord and Savior has rescued me from so many things. I just can't ignore that anymore.
No.
When you've seen the graphic car wreck that I went through and how I walked away from that.
You sent me a picture of that
with not a single scratch.
It was destroyed. It was destroyed.
I had to convince the police officers the next day that I was the driver because they did not believe it. There's like, I can't believe you walked away from that. It was just, I can't explain those things. And what I witnessed during the car wreck and after the car wreck will be in the movie. We're actually getting ready to film that scene in May, the car wreck scene. So very excited about that.
That is exciting. How long do you think it's going to take? And where is it going to be shown? How are we, your audience, your fans, your rah section, how are we going to see that?
Well, it's going to take about 25 days to film.
Mm-hmm.
Believe it or not, with editing and sound and all that, it takes another year before it comes out. Yeah, it really does. So we're starting to film in May. We got it broken up over several different months, so it's not so much stress on me to see those things and relive those things again. So we're breaking it up like that, working with a great director, Hollywood director, that has done a lot of great films and TV series. Good friend of mine now. We've really developed a bond. We have the same age daughter and some of the same situations with our children living out of state. So we have to fly, you know, to see our children. And we just become really good friends, and we talk almost every day.
Wonderful.
With my director, Stevie Long. I don't know, you know, anybody's familiar with him, but he's done some work with Universal Pictures and wrote the TV series Sons of Anarchy. I don't know if you remember that, with the motorcycle.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So he wrote those series, and just become a really good friend. And he is directing my movie. He wrote the screenplay for the book that's turned into a movie, Pocket of Hope. The Chad Gaines story is the name of the movie. It will be in several different movie theaters around the country, as well as online through Amazon Prime when it does come out, and have a wonderful book and movie trailer already.
Woo!
It's just really gripping, right to the point. It's only 3 minutes. Check it out if you can. It's on my website, right on the front page. Yeah, so a lot of great things going on right now.
Absolutely. And you know, I sit here and knowing your past and knowing your future, I'm your biggest cheerleader for you to get there, because you're the first time I met you, I'm like, he's so nice. He's so genuine, you know, and oftentimes you don't find that. And so for your life to turn around like this, I think there's so many of me out there that are so excited for you, you know, that we want you to have the peace you deserve, the happiness you deserve, the fame you deserve. So how does that feel when you take it in and like, you know what, you look back, you're like, that little boy is going to be in a movie, be featured, you know, his story is going to be talked about. How does that feel inside?
Of course, it feels very exciting, and you know, you think of the future and what you can do and how you can help other people, and starting my own foundation soon to help, you know, so many kids. I'm working on an after care program for abused children that have been removed from the home, and child trafficking children that have been rescued. They will be able to come to my facility and get the care and counseling and trust and medical evaluations that they need. So, you know, I'm working on that also. It is very exciting, of course,
Good.
like I said, to look back and, you know, look at the pictures when I was young and see how it is now. But, you know, for me, it's more of a humbling experience to say, who can I help? How can I help?
That's
You know,
huge.
that's the main thing for the rest of my life. I know I had to suffer and go through the things I could to bring the gifts and the blessings to other people. Because without it, I don't know who I would be.
Wow.
Who am I?
Yeah, that's such an amazing story. And I know we're almost out of time and I don't want to keep it, but can you tell people where to get your book, how to get a hold of you, where to follow you? Just give us all your information so people can find you.
Sure. You can definitely follow me on Facebook for sure. That's where my biggest followers are. Instagram, of course. My website is gaineschad.com. You can get both books. You can get the Change book series, of course, with Les Brown and me on the front. You can get my book, Who Am I, on the website. There's a contact form right there that you can fill out if you have any questions or just want to talk about your story or reach out however you're feeling. I'm always open to talking to whoever. So you can find all that on my website.
Yeah.
Got my
And I'm
email
going
there.
to, yeah, I'm going to second that because you're probably one of the nicest people I've ever met. Had I just met you not knowing your story, I would have never guessed it. You're kind, you're humble, and I'll always be your biggest cheerleader. I'm so very, very happy for you.
Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. And I know all of our other co-authors that know you and the new ones that are going to get to know you are going to have the same emotions that I do. I mean, your story is amazing. You're amazing. And we need more people like you.
I've got to meet so many people through the Change Book series. Jim Lutz, amazing, brilliant guy, million times over. He's helped me through different things. I got to speak at the Penthouse Mastermind event, which was amazing for me. And I got a few more of those in the future.
Yay.
Working on some speaking engagements too, Also, I got some huge book signings coming up in the LA Hollywood area in August.
Okay.
And all that information is on my website. We keep it up to date pretty often.
Yeah, that's I'm so excited for you. I really am. And I'm very grateful that you got up so early to be on our podcast today.
Of course.
You were like the first person I thought of because I'm like, there's so many new authors.
There is,
great people. We need to get to know each other and, do things together and support each other and be everyone's biggest cheerleader. So
Absolutely.
I am definitely yours. And I totally agree with you about Jim Lutz. He's amazing. He really is. If you don't know him and you're an author, you should get to know him. He's something else. So Chad, thank you so much for being on the show today. And we'll have you back on because I know you're going to keep morphing into bigger and bigger and bigger. So anyway, thanks for being here. And anybody who doesn't know Chad, reach out to him, get his book, wait for his movie. It's worth it. So
thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome. Take care.
Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I'm Nicole Harvick, and this is my co-host,
Rachel Best. And we look forward to seeing you again next time.